All right, ladies and gentlemen, today's video is on how to research ICOs. As always, these videos are not financial advice, so do your own research and make your own decisions on anything you do. So ICOs are initial coin offerings. And why ICOs? So I guess the best way is to show you guys. In the past few months, there was a pretty popular ICO called Mise Go. This was happened in about June. And it actually completely sold out in the pre-sale, never got to a public ICO. It sold out quite quickly. It started at around 19 million market cap, and you can see it started trading here, and initially wasn't taking off too much. It was about double the ICO price, but over the subsequent months, it did extremely well. It's currently at over $1 billion market cap. So just doing some basic math there, 19 million to over $1 billion is over a 50 times gain. So even if you didn't get into the pre-sale, if you were in tune with this new crypto asset coming on the market, you could have gotten pretty early and still made a pretty strong gain. So this is the appeal for them. The appeal for new assets that have a lot of potential to appreciate quickly is the value of ICOs. And we've seen this with other ICOs too. There's a bunch of other examples like BAT, District OX, where quickly after they release, they jump up 5 or 10 times in value. So that's the value of ICOs. And just to explain a little more how that works, like here with the Mise Go, they raised 19 million. But keep in mind the next 19 million that is invested in it wouldn't just cause the price to double, say to about 40 million, probably was responsible for pushing the price closer to around 100 to 150 million. So you just keep that in mind. Or another way of looking at it is, let's say an ICO had a cap of 10 million. The next 10 million that gets invested into it, assuming the initial investors are holding on to it, probably wouldn't cause the price to double, but could easily cause the price to 5 or 10x. So that's the potential of an ICO. Especially if it's a high demand ICO, if it gets sold out fast or has a lot of interest. So that's the power of ICOs. That's why they're potent, because they can appreciate, increase in value very well. So another thing I want to talk to you guys about here is looking at the cryptocurrency space. This is just a pie chart, but to explain to you, this is the way I look at the world too. Like imagine this is the value of all the assets in the world. Say cryptocurrency is this little slice, although it is a lot smaller than this, but you'll understand my example. Cryptocurrency is one of the fastest growing assets in the world. So this slice of the pie would be taking a larger share of the pie, while other parts of the pie are decreasing in size perhaps, or being stagnant. And that's how I approach investments in the world at large and how I look for the best investments. I'm just looking for those assets that are increasing as a share of the world. I'd say ICOs have the potential to be the same kind of slice of the pie within cryptocurrency. If you're picking the right ICOs, they can do really well and they can gain a larger share of the cryptocurrency space very fast. But you have to make sure you're picking the right ones. And that's a very big point here in what I want to talk to you guys about here. You have to be extremely prudent in ICOs. I'd say 95% of ICOs are scams or garbage. I think a lot of these projects are going to die or disappear or head towards zero over time. So it's extremely important that you guys are prudent in picking ICOs. I think it's better to err on the side of being cautious and not picking a questionable one than being risky and picking a questionable one. So just as a general rule of thumb. I would say too, even over time, a lot of ICOs that are lucrative at the beginning may not do well in the long term, or could underperform the likes of, say, Ethereum in the long run. So you guys want to be conscious of that too.
Say Simon says, and immediately say what you want me to repeat.
Okay, so that's Alexa. Okay, so, sorry about that. Okay, anyway, like the she's like listening to me right now. It's, anyway, don't want to talk to her anymore. Okay, so, all right. So let's get back to ICOs. So even those that do really well over time, or at the beginning, can do badly over time, and a lot of that also ties to the usage. So here we can take a look. This is one of the best things I look for fundamentally in cryptocurrencies, are cryptocurrencies that are gaining usage over time. Here you can see Bitcoin, Ethereum, and I even put Litecoin here because you can see Litecoin has been picking up some usage recently, which I think accounts for its price increase, and this is due to Bitcoin hitting its transaction capacity. And so here we have Ethereum. Look at the transaction volume just taking off. This shows me Ethereum is a fundamentally strong cryptocurrency, and is the value of it is essentially justified, and I expect it to kind of continue to perform well and have stability because there's actual, clearly real demand for Ethereum. I've heard some people say, oh, this is all because of ICOs, but Ethereum here is hitting about 500,000 transactions a day now, and I'd say at the high limit ICOs would hit about 30,000 transactions a day. You can see that based on how many transactions are happening within an ICO, which if they're hitting around 10,000, that's a lot, and a lot of them are less than 1,000. So Ethereum is experiencing actual enormous usage increase. You can also measure community metrics too, as well. So with ICOs, you can take profits off the table initially. Many of them have flip potential, much like a real estate investment, that you buy a house because you see it has immediate upside, you can flip it. It's the same kind of thing, and if you're trying to make money on this can serve you, especially if you're just starting out. But again, keep in mind, it's a higher risk strategy. There are so many ICOs coming out. You gotta be prudent because most of these are absolute garbage. A lot of these, the creators knowingly are marketing crap just to make money off you. So to be honest, the ICO market today kind of reminds me of the cryptocurrency market a couple years ago, where there were new coins coming out all the time, and the creators knew they were crap, but were doing it to make some money off, kind of newbies. So it kind of reminds me of that, but in a more sophisticated way. Now rather than perhaps anonymous developers, these are like real people. I think they're more legit than that, but it's still, it's extremely risky. And many creators of ICOs, to their credit, may have the best intention, but regardless of which, to see it come to fruition is a long shot for a lot of them out there. So again, I'd say always better to err on the side of being cautious than being too risky on this. Again, just to kind of give you guys a way to picture it, I imagine it again as just like a pile of crap, and then there's gems inside it, and you have to be really picky to find those gems. And if you do, you could do well. But I think that goes into it. So this site, ICO Alert, again, is a great site. I mentioned it before. It kind of tells you what ICOs are coming out. There's like 10 new ICOs a day. So this really requires a team to be able to research this at this point. This is just too much work for any one man. So we have a community here, and you guys should join us if you're not on it already. I'll put a link to join the Slack in the details below. But we're researching ICOs here, and then you guys can use this ICO research outline, which I'm going to get to in just a minute, to show you guys how to research it, and then we'll evolve that too as we go. So this way we can identify the quality ICOs, and our community can find them and capitalize on them, say before everyone else in the cryptocurrency space, which there's an enormous cryptocurrency space out there that is not even in touch with YouTube and that stuff. So having a community is an advantage for sure. So let's just move on to the outline then. All right, so here's the research outline I created for researching ICOs, and I put I'd say the most important initial things here at the top, and I'll kind of run through an example of this with you guys to an extent, just to show you guys a little bit how I'm going about doing this. First, of course, is the ICO name. Next is the funding cap on the ICO, and if there's a pre-sale, how much of that cap goes toward the pre-sale and how much toward the main ICO. This is really important. ICOs that have a big cap it's much more difficult to move up. It's like the same way that Ethereum already has a $27 billion market cap. It's going to be a lot harder for, say, Ethereum to double in price than, say, something like Neo, although Neo is more volatile too. But that's the same thing with an ICO. If an ICO has 150 or 200 million market cap, it's going to be a lot harder for that ICO to double in price after it's released than, say, an ICO at a 10 million market cap. So that's really important. What percentage of tokens are being released and what percentage are held by creators, just to make sure there's nothing crazy going on there. And then I'd say this is also very important, looking at the community interest, number of Twitter followers, Reddit subscribers, Slack users, Telegram users, and if there is a forum, the number of forum users. And on top of this, we want to make sure that this is legit, and so we're looking at the number of active users per day. And you can do that by kind of scrolling through and seeing. So let me just show you. So I pulled two examples here. I wanted to use Kyber as an example, even though I was too late for this ICO, and so I haven't researched it very extensively, but the community stats are very impressive. So look at the Twitter here. There's almost 8,500 followers on Twitter. The Telegram has almost 20,000 users, and the Slack channel, I haven't been able to get into it for, I feel like 2 weeks now. It's full, so I think there are around 20,000 members there too. And this is the first time, I think they had the biggest Slack channel ever. So those are really strong community metrics. In terms of their funding cap, they're looking to raise 200,000 Ether. Current Ether price is about $300, so that's around $60 million they want to raise. The token distribution is 60% approximately for the public, 20% for the company, 20% for founders, advisors, etc. So we could fill that information out here. The funding cap, again, was 200,000 Ether, what percentage is being released, and then the community stats. And, not every community has all of these, but you can fill out most of these. Sometimes they have a Slack, but not a Telegram, or vice versa, or something like that. So these are the most, this is like kind of a snapshot, this first initial thing, just to make sure it's a potent one. If I see a funding cap that's really high, that's a red flag for me. If I see a funding cap that's low, like 10 million, 5 million, then it's going to pique my interest, especially if it has a strong community interest. And in that case, it may sell out quickly, so you may need to be on top of that. Okay, so moving on. When would the tokens be released? This is important because some ICOs don't release the tokens for months, and that's kind of an opportunity loss when that doesn't happen, because those tokens could appreciate in value all the while that they could have been released to you, and your funds are tied up. So this is relevant. So we want to find out if it's going to happen, immediately or shortly after the ICO, or if it's going to be delayed, and if it is delayed, how long is it going to look like? And also, are there any exchanges ready to list it? This is also important, for the health of that asset. Okay, so just continuing on our research, it's important for us to know, when is this ICO happening? Is it next week? Is it next month? Is there a pre-sale? When are the dates for that? We don't want to miss that. Do we have to register for the pre-sale? These are things that are changing in the space just in the past few months that haven't existed. A lot of ICOs these days, you have to register. And if you miss the registration, then unfortunately you're not going to get in the ICO or the pre-sale for that matter. So we need to know these details so we have an in if it is a good quality one. And again, a lot of crappy ones will have the same kind of setup. So it's important to distinguish which ICOs are quality versus which are not. So if there is a pre-sale, it would be good to know the individual contribution cap on it, if they'll let us know, and the contribution caps on the ICO itself. So, and not all of these are told right away, but we do want to find this out as soon as possible. And then also, are there any contribution bonuses? A lot of times they'll have a bonus for the pre-sale investors, or a bonus for the first 24 hours, and then for the first week, or or second day, or so on and so forth. So we want to know those bonuses to get an idea, and then we also want to know, is there any venture capital or hedge fund investors involved, and if so, we want to know who's involved and how much they invested. Also, if they got any kind of advantage, it would be good to know. If they're getting, that would be hard to find out, but it would be good to know if we could find out. So yeah, that would be some of the more important things there. All right, and then I want to talk about a couple other things that are important to look at within a project. The first is the value proposition. Again, what is it doing? We're looking for kind of broad value propositions here, things that could entail a lot of use cases within it. Again, I'm looking for the biggest use cases possible, a platform, if you will, much better than an acute use case. And to add on to that, the target market, how big is the target market? And then is the product ready to launch, or is it just an idea? A lot of, again, really crappy ICOs will not have a product ready to launch. They'll just be an idea. So it's really ideal if these projects have a product that's ready to launch or ready to launch very soon. And that's the next point. If it's not ready, how far along developed is it? How soon is it ready to be launched? And on that note, how long has the project been in development? And you can often look at GitHub and see this and not take their word for it. We actually want to be able to see their development if we can, see that the code is there. You can check the GitHub activity. I kind of did that in my top 5 ICO videos, and then any other details on that. So we want to kind of take a glance at the project so we have an idea what's going on there, and it's prudent to dig deep into these so we really know what's going on. With ICOs, there's so many projects out there, so I don't feel like we're researching them as thoroughly as, say, the hundreds of hours of invested researching some specific cryptocurrencies. But nonetheless, I think it's prudent to at least spend a good amount of time for any quality ICO to make sure that all the ducks are in a row and it looks good. All right, and then we want to look at the team, as the success of the project will largely, of course, rely on the team. So we want to pay attention to who's involved in the project. Are there any notable leaders or team members? Also, we want to know any notable investors or strategic partners. Who and how so? This is really important for, I'd say, the short term of the project especially. Long term, I think it relies a lot more on the team itself, but these are things that clearly the market values right now. For example, MisaGo had, the kind of dream team for advisory board. They have Vitalik, Gavin Wood, and Joseph Poon. So really strong advisory board. The team looks good, and that gives a lot of confidence from the community. But we also want to make sure, they also have a team that's been active in the cryptocurrency space for years and have been supporters of Ethereum. So these are important things to pay attention to. So who are their main developers and leaders? What is their history in cryptocurrency? Have they been, as active as a MisaGo, for instance? What work have they done in the past? How have they been involved? And even outside of cryptocurrency, what's their history? We also want to know how big of a following they've had before. I think reputation is really important in any business, and you can kind of get an idea of people based on their post history on Twitter or something like that. So how big of a following do they have on social media, especially on Twitter? Again, we're trying to get an idea if they're known there too. And then also, are they adaptable and sharp? This is important as well. A lot of projects, as I mentioned in the past too, if they're slow to develop or slow to release a product, they can just get eaten up by innovation or new projects. So they need to be adaptable, sharp, and fast moving. So it's good to get a gauge of that. And again, not all of these projects, we may not want to stay in all these projects long term, but these are still important things to look at, especially if we are. We want to see how big the team is. This is, of course, quality over quantity, but just good to have an idea. Also get to know what country the team is based out of. This is important for communication issues, among other things. Is there any shady background on them, or do they have a completely unknown background? These are things to pay attention to. And then how well do they interact with the public? Are they likable? What's their reputation? So, of course, these are the leaders after all. So, and a lot of times people buy the leaders of a project, not what they currently have available as a product. So, and I've mentioned before, it's like buying the brand or the reputation without knowing all the details. So same kind of thing here. And then finally, I'd say, another good thing to do here is to compare versus others who are doing research. And for example, there, Ian Bellina is one of the best ICO researchers I see out there right now. He does a great job. There's also Crypto Portfolio. He does a good job. You know, so check them out on YouTube. Here's Ian's YouTube. Does a good job reviewing them. And then Crypto Portfolio. These are both two good guys to get an idea, to get some kind of background on ICOs too, and get a good feedback of what's going on, what other people are thinking about ICOs coming up and that kind of stuff. So yeah, hopefully this is helpful for you guys. If you guys like the video, hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't yet, and follow me on Twitter. If you're not following me on Twitter yet, I post updates there more frequently than videos. I'll put a link to that in the description too. So, all right, guys, that's it for this one. Take care, and I'll see you on the next one.